Donald Trump is ending his first year in office with a war. His campaign promise was to avoid foreign conflicts, but he has done the very opposite. The question is why? Why did Trump carry out this attack, and why on Venezuela? Why does this country matter? The short answer is oil. Venezuela has a lot of oil. But the Americans, of course, are telling a different story. Trump has been fixated with Venezuela for a while now. He says it's about drug trafficking. It's about stopping illegal migration. But if there was any doubt about the real intentions, this operation has cleared it. Venezuela is a country on the northern coast of South America. It has vast natural resources, especially oil. Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserves in the world. The largest proven oil reserves in the world. We are talking an estimated 303 billion barrels of oil. That's more than Saudi Arabia and more than the United States. But there is a catch. Much of this oil is heavy crude. It is harder to extract and more expensive to refine, which is why Venezuela's current output is far below potential. And this leaves room for expansion and interest from global powers like the United States. They're interested. But for years, the Americans have been shut out of Venezuela. They imposed sanctions on the Maduro regime, so Venezuela under Maduro turned to other players, to countries like China, Russia, and Iran. In the absence of America, these countries stepped in.
The warning signs arrived quietly, then all at once. New threats, sharper language, a return to pressure tactics many thought had been shelved. For energy markets already on edge, the message was unmistakable. Washington is once again tightening its focus on Caracas. And beneath the public talk of democracy and discipline lies a far more powerful driver: oil, leverage, and the future balance of global energy power. Venezuela matters because it sits atop one of the largest proven oil reserves on the planet, not in a distant, theoretical sense, but in barrels that could reshape supply if fully unlocked. Heavy crude, difficult to refine, yet indispensable for certain refineries that were built precisely to process it. For decades, those barrels flowed north, quietly underpinning energy security in the Western Hemisphere. When sanctions cut that flow, the shock rippled through refineries, shipping routes, and price benchmarks. Control over energy flows has always been a form of geopolitical influence. In a world where supply disruptions can move markets in hours, a country with vast reserves becomes a strategic chess piece. Venezuela's oil is not just about revenue for Caracas. It is about who sets terms in energy markets, who gains bargaining power, and who absorbs the economic pain when barrels are removed from circulation. The renewed pressure campaign from the United States president must be read through this lens. Domestically, energy politics are inseparable from economic confidence. Fuel prices shape voter sentiment, inflation expectations, and perceptions of economic strength. Any leader facing internal pressure understands that energy narratives travel faster than policy memos. Targeting a sanctioned oil state allows Washington to signal toughness abroad while reinforcing claims of protecting domestic interests at home. Sanctions, in this strategy, are not merely punitive. They are instruments designed to redirect flows, discipline markets, and reassert dominance over energy trade routes. By constraining Venezuelan exports, Washington limits alternative supply channels that could weaken its influence over pricing and trade norms. At the same time, it pressures other producers to align with preferred frameworks, reminding allies and rivals alike that access to markets still runs through political gates. There is also a longer-term ambition at work: energy dominance. The idea that the United States should not only meet its own energy needs, but shape the global system. In that vision, rivals are discouraged from building parallel energy networks that bypass traditional financial and trading systems. Venezuela, with its willingness to sell oil outside established norms, represents a challenge to that order. Caracas, however, is not isolated in the way it once was. Years of sanctions have forced it to adapt, improvise, and diversify its partnerships. Energy ties with China have deepened, not just through crude shipments, but through infrastructure investment, debt restructuring, and long-term supply agreements. Russia has provided technical assistance, logistical support, and diplomatic backing, helping Venezuela keep production alive under pressure. These relationships are not symbolic. They are transactional and strategic. Within the broader oil-producing bloc, Venezuela's position adds another layer of complexity. OPEC dynamics are already strained by competing interests, production quotas, and differing fiscal needs. Any escalation that limits Venezuelan output tightens global supply, especially when other producers are cautious about opening the taps. That tightening feeds directly into price volatility, amplifying the impact far beyond Latin America. For global oil prices, the implications are immediate. Markets react not only to actual barrels lost, but to the perception of risk. Tankers rerouted, insurance premiums raised, contracts rewritten. Even the hint of stricter enforcement can lift prices, pushing costs higher for importing nations. Emerging markets, already grappling with currency pressures and debt, feel the squeeze first as energy bills rise and trade balances worsen. Latin America faces its own set of consequences. Venezuela's neighbors are caught between economic opportunity and political alignment. Some benefit from higher prices. Others suffer from reduced regional stability and lost trade. Migration pressures intensify when economic lifelines shrink, creating social and political challenges that spill across borders. The financial dimension is just as critical. Energy trade is inseparable from currency flows. When sanctioned oil is sold outside traditional channels, often in alternative currencies or barter arrangements, it chips away at the dominance of the dollar-centered system. Washington understands this risk. Cracking down on Venezuela is also about discouraging experiments that weaken established financial structures. Yet this approach carries serious risks of miscalculation. Sanctions fatigue is real. Overuse dulls effectiveness and encourages innovation around restrictions. Each new round pushes targeted states to build parallel systems, deepen non-Western alliances, and harden resistance. What begins as pressure can end as permanent decoupling. There is also the danger of unintended market consequences. Tightening supply too aggressively can backfire, driving prices higher and hurting consumers at home. Refineries designed for heavy crude face technical challenges when that feedstock disappears, leading to inefficiencies and higher costs. Energy dominance, in practice, becomes harder to sustain when market realities intrude. For the United States president, the gamble is that renewed pressure will extract concessions without triggering wider disruption. That calculation assumes that allies will fall in line, that markets will absorb the shock, and that rivals will not exploit the opening. History suggests such assumptions are fragile. Venezuela, for its part, has little incentive to capitulate quickly. Survival under sanctions has reshaped its economic instincts. Every new restriction reinforces the belief that diversification is essential. Oil shipments may be fewer, but they are more politically charged, woven into a broader strategy of resistance and realignment. What makes this moment especially volatile is timing. Global energy markets are already navigating uncertainty from conflicts, supply transitions, and shifting demand patterns. Injecting another flashpoint increases the odds of cascading effects. A single enforcement action can echo through shipping lanes, futures markets, and diplomatic corridors. This is why the renewed targeting of Venezuela should not be dismissed as routine rhetoric. It is a signal that energy is once again at the center of geopolitical confrontation. Oil is the currency of influence, and Venezuela remains one of the largest untapped vaults in the world. As pressure builds, the question is not whether consequences will follow, but where they will land. On prices at the pump, on currencies in fragile economies, on alliances being quietly reshaped in response to coercion. The strategy may deliver short-term leverage, but the long-term costs are far harder to contain. In the end, this escalation is a reminder that oil still rules global politics. Beneath the speeches and sanctions lies a simple truth. Whoever controls energy flows shapes the future. The latest move against Venezuela raises a final, unsettling question for markets and governments alike. Has Washington calculated the endgame, or is it opening a chapter it may not be able to close?